Friday began like any other, but I left work earlier than usual. The team had plans to wrap up loose ends, and without me around, they'd probably call it a day soon after. I was eager to spend the evening with my wife, Ingrid, who I adored more than words could express. We had been together for nearly 6 years and married for 3.5. At 29, both of us were navigating the challenges of a young marriage. Recently, though, something felt different. Our connection seemed strained, and for the past month, she often appeared distant. Determined to bridge that gap, I decided to create an evening she'd never forget. Stopping at the butcher, I picked up a pair of ribeye steaks. A quick trip to the florist followed, where I bought roses, fresh and fragrant, far better than anything from a grocery store. I even grabbed a couple of bottles of fine wine. Returning home early gave me time to prepare. The house was cleaned from top to bottom, fresh sheets adorned our bed, and candles were carefully placed in the bedroom. The dining table was set with our finest silverware and neatly folded napkins to add a touch of elegance. I opened a bottle of wine to let it breathe and placed the roses by the entrance. Ingrid loved their scent. In the kitchen, I started my signature scalloped potatoes, thinly sliced and coated with olive oil, seasoned with salt, pepper, and a hint of rosemary. For the steaks, a light sprinkle of mustard powder would give them a flavorful kick. By the time I finished, everything looked perfect. Pride swelled in my chest as I imagined her reaction. Tonight was going to be special. It had to be. I had just begun laying the potato slices on the baking tray, the oven preheating nearby, when I heard the front door open. Ingrid's familiar voice called out, "Quentin, are you home?" Her question puzzled me. My car was parked outside, and the roses by the door were hard to miss. Before I could respond, I heard her voice again, this time with an unsettling edge. "All right, we got here first. Let's sit on the couch. When he walks in, it'll be better if we're seated, and he's standing. That way, he won't be startled when we tell him." My chest tightened as her words sank in. "Tell me what?" I wiped my hands on a dish towel and stepped into the living room, my mind racing. The scene that greeted me left me rooted in place. Ingrid was sitting on the couch, visibly startled by my sudden appearance. Beside her was a man I recognized instantly. He was the new deputy head of HR she had mentioned a few times. Tall, easily over 180 centimeters, athletic, blonde, and annoyingly handsome, he radiated a confidence that bordered on arrogance. He extended his hand with a smirk. "Hey, Quentin, I'm Harvey," he said. Still reeling, I instinctively shook his hand. His grip was uncomfortably firm, almost as if he were testing me. What a smug piece of work, I thought. Breaking the tension, Ingrid spoke, her voice hesitant. "Quentin, we need to talk about something." "Talk about what?" I glanced between the two of them, my thoughts scattered. Was he staying for dinner? Should I defrost another steak? Ingrid didn't give me the chance to ask. "I'm going to spend the weekend with Harvey," she said, her words striking me harder than I ever thought possible. "It's just one weekend." "What?" I stammered, disbelief crashing over me. Harvey stepped forward, his tone dripping with confidence. "This will be good for you," he said smugly. "I'm going to teach her things you can only imagine. After this weekend, you'll appreciate her even more." He turned to Ingrid with a knowing smile before continuing. "Don't worry, it's a one-time thing. After this, she'll never stray again." Fury flared inside me as I forced myself to focus. "If she does, I'll divorce her," I replied evenly, my voice laced with resolve. Harvey's expression darkened. He leaned in closer, his voice low and menacing. "No, you won't. If you even think about filing for divorce, I promise you won't walk away unscathed. Your life will be hell, Quentin. Think carefully." He stepped back and grinned, his arm now casually draped around Ingrid. "She's spending the weekend with me," he added, his tone casual as though he were discussing weather plans. "But after that, she's all yours." The way he addressed her as sweetheart made my skin crawl. "Have you already been together?" I asked, my voice sharp and accusatory. Ingrid gasped, offended by the implication. "No, we haven't," she exclaimed. "That would be cheating." "And this isn't?" I shot back, disbelief dripping from every word. Feeling the need to escape the suffocating tension, I muttered, "I need a drink." Before I could move, Harvey offered with a smirk. "I'll grab you a beer." "I can manage that myself," I growled, glaring at him. Unfazed, Harvey placed a hand on Ingrid's shoulder, his confidence unshaken. "Give him a minute, sweetheart," Harvey said, his tone dripping with condescension. It was clear he thrived on being in control, and the calmness in his voice only fueled my anger. He's going to need time to process this. We've been planning it for weeks, and we just dropped it on him. He'll realize it's inevitable. They always do. His casual arrogance revealed this wasn't his first time orchestrating something like this. I stormed into the kitchen, my mind racing. I could feel Ingrid's hesitation behind me, as if she wanted to follow, but he must have stopped her. Maybe that was for the best. But that damn sweetheart, the way he kept calling her that over and over, it infuriated me to no end. What a smug, arrogant fool. In the kitchen, my eyes landed on the open bottle of wine. I poured myself a glass and took a large gulp, but it wasn't what I needed. Wine couldn't steady my nerves for something like this. Marching into the garage, I yanked open the door to my beer fridge, nearly tearing it off its hinges. Without a second thought, I grabbed a bottle of Jack Daniels and slammed the fridge door shut. What a pair of fools, I muttered bitterly, my voice echoing in the cold, empty space. As I looked around for a bottle opener, frustration mounted. It was nowhere to be found, probably still in the kitchen. There was no way I was going back in there just yet. I needed time to think, to breathe, to make sense of what was unfolding. Resorting to an old army trick, I set the bottle cap against the sharp edge of my workbench and struck it with precision. The cap flew off into a corner, but I didn't bother retrieving it. My thoughts were consumed with the chaos unraveling inside my own home. How had it come to this, and how was I going to handle it? Taking a swig of whiskey, I leaned against the bench, letting the fire in my chest settle. Slowly, a plan began to take shape. I walked to the far end of the garage, opened a cabinet, and retrieved what I needed. Tucking it into the back pocket of my pants, I headed back inside. Each step solidified my resolve. Finishing the whiskey in one gulp, I grabbed another beer, popped it open with a proper bottle opener this time, and began preparing something else. From the knife block, I slid out the largest blade and tucked it into my waistband beside the other item. It wasn't for violence. I had no intention of landing in jail. But intimidation? That was an entirely different story. With a deep breath, I walked into the living room. There they were, these shameless fools, sitting on my couch, holding hands as if they owned the place. The moment they saw me, they awkwardly let go, shifting apart slightly. Good. At least some of the power dynamic was shifting. I tossed my phone onto the coffee table, making it abundantly clear as it was recording. Harvey stood up, his arms spread wide as if to play the role of peacemaker. Listen, buddy, it's only for one weekend. That word, buddy, set my teeth on edge. He wasn't my buddy. He never would be. Noticing the phone, Harvey's smirk grew. I see you're recording this. That's fine. But let me make one thing clear. If this ends up on social media, you won't just feel emotional pain. I'll make sure you feel it physically too. You understand? I kept my gaze steady. I'm recording this for my protection, I replied, my voice even. And strangely enough, for yours as well. His sneer deepened, entirely unbothered. Don't even think about sending this to work, he warned. I'm the deputy head of HR. All complaints go through me, and if anyone tries to bypass me, I'll know. It's not about what you know, pal. It's about who you know. Got it? I understand, I said, keeping my expression calm, but I want you to say for the record exactly what you plan to do with my wife. Harvey puffed up, exuding smug confidence. I'm taking your wife for the weekend to give her something new to think about, he declared. She'll learn things that'll make both of you happier. Then, she'll come back to you with new skills to show off. Skills that'll blow your mind. He paused, adding with a smirk. Though probably not right away. She'll need some time to recover from the experience. I didn't buy a word of his nonsense, but I pressed on. And after that? She comes back to you, he said, his arrogance on full display. She's promised me she'll stay faithful to you for the rest of her life. She'll be better, stronger, someone who can bring you more pleasure than ever before. Turning to Ingrid, I locked eyes with her. Is this really what you want? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Yes, Quentin. Please. It's just one weekend, Ingrid pleaded. After that, I swear I'll be faithful to you. Turning to Harvey, I pressed him. And what happens if she doesn't keep her promise? Just like she vowed to be faithful to me on our wedding day? What if she cheats again? Are you going to come back and torment her the way you've threatened to do to me? Or what if some so-called god of passion shows up and offers her something better? My voice dripped with sarcasm, but the meaning seemed to elude him. He stared at me, genuinely confused, as though no one had ever challenged him this way before. Finally, he muttered, "She promised me she'll stay loyal to you after this weekend," as if that was the ultimate solution. "Sure," I shot back, "because right now, I believe everything she says." Fixing my gaze on him, I made my proposal. "Here's the deal. I'll fight you for her." Harvey's arrogant smirk didn't waver. He was taller, broader, and younger than me, and he clearly relished the challenge. "If that's what you want, let's do it," he said. "I don't want to waste the weekend, so let's settle this right now." "I'm in," I replied without hesitation. Ingrid gasped, pressing her hands to her mouth in that familiar nervous gesture of hers. Her voice trembled with forced excitement. "Two men fighting over me. How thrilling." Her eyes lit up briefly, but I turned to her, my tone cold and cutting. "I'm not fighting for you. You're not worth it. I'm fighting for my self-respect." Her expression fell, the spark in her eyes vanishing as the reality of my words hit her. Turning back to Harvey, I laid down the terms. "If I win, you'll leave and never speak to her again, not even at work. If you win, you get your weekend, and I won't file for divorce. But there are rules." He maintained his smug grin. "All right, let's hear them. The first one to fall on his back loses. No knives, no weapons, and no one calls the police." "Fine, no police," he said, still smirking. Then, with mock curiosity, he asked, "Do you have any knives on you?" Without a word, I pulled a large kitchen knife from the waistband of my pants and placed it on the coffee table. His confidence flickered for a moment as his eyes widened. "And what about a gun? Got one of those too?" he asked, trying to recover his bravado. Smiling, I reached behind my back and produced an air pistol, a perfect replica of a Glock. I wasn't sure if he knew much about firearms, but the look in his eyes told me it seemed real enough. He tried to maintain his arrogance. "I'm gonna beat the hell out of you before I put you on your back," he said, his voice unconvincing. "Do your worst, you fool," I replied, my tone calm but firm. "Just remember the rules. No knives, no weapons, no police. Everything else is fair." "I'm not an idiot," he snapped. "I get it. But when I win, maybe I'll keep her for the whole week." "If you win, you can do whatever you want," I said, stepping closer. "But if I win, at least I'll be able to respect myself for trying to fight for my marriage. I won't feel ashamed every time I look in the mirror." Ingrid's expression shifted as she finally registered my determination, something she had seen in me before. Her voice cracked with panic. "No, stop. I've changed my mind, Quentin. Don't do this. Please." She turned to Harvey, her voice frantic. "Leave now. I don't want this anymore." But it was far too late. I growled, my voice low and resolute. "You started this with him weeks ago. I'm finishing it here and now. Grab your phone and record this. I need proof." Tears streamed down her face as she realized she no longer had control over the situation. I motioned toward the kitchen door and said to Harvey, "After you." He hesitated but eventually walked toward the back door, stepping out onto the patio. I grabbed a few of my earlier preparations and followed him. As soon as he stepped onto the wooden deck, I kicked him square in the back, sending him face first into the flower bed. He scrambled to his feet, fury blazing in his eyes. I smirked and said, "No rules." It wasn't entirely true, but the point had been made, and it had the desired effect. He was livid. Perfect. He swung at me, a slow, telegraphed punch that might as well have come with a written notice. I blocked it easily and, in one swift motion, hurled the contents of my right hand at his face. Salt, pepper, rosemary, and mustard powder. He howled in pain, clutching his burning eyes. I lunged forward, aiming to push him onto his back, but he stumbled backward, managing to stay upright. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he lowered his hands, glaring at me with a mix of hatred and humiliation, his nose dripping messily. I approached him with calm determination and struck him in the stomach with all my strength. He doubled over, clutching his midsection, but stubbornly remained upright. One hand gripped his abdomen, the other shielded his face. Without hesitation, I struck him hard, causing him to stumble and lose his footing. He groaned in pain, unable to decide which part of him hurt more. I leaned in and attempted to push him onto his back, but he resisted. Frustrated, I landed a firm punch to his face. His head snapped back, and though he wavered, he still didn't collapse. He faltered, gripping his face as pain overwhelmed him. The agony on his face was raw and undeniable. To break his will, I slapped him hard, sending his head sideways. Another slap followed, this time backhanded, but the sting it left on my hands reminded me it wasn't the wisest move. I leaned closer and spoke quietly, my tone steady but firm. "You can stop this at any time. Just lie on your back, and it's over." Raising my hand as if to strike again, I watched as his knees buckled. Finally, he fell to his side and rolled onto his back. The situation was now firmly in my control. I turned to look at Ingrid. Tears streamed down her face, though I couldn't tell if they were from regret, fear, or a mix of emotions. Grabbing Harvey by the collar, I pulled him to his feet and dragged him toward the garden gate. Opening it, I whispered in a tone cold as steel, "Never speak to her again. And if you even think of involving anyone else, this will feel like a warm-up." I shoved him outside and slammed the gate shut. As I turned back toward the house, a foul stench hit me. He'd lost all composure. Ingrid stood frozen, phone still in her hand, tears glistening on her cheeks. "Send me a copy of that video," I said flatly, walking past her into the kitchen to wash my hands. At least Harvey would leave with a faint scent of rosemary, thanks to the seasoning I'd thrown earlier. Upstairs, I opened the spare room closet and grabbed a suitcase. Without saying a word, I began packing her things, starting with her clothing. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I'm still yours. I belong to you." I didn't respond immediately, just kept packing. Finally, I said, "We agreed I wouldn't divorce you if I lost. But as you saw, I didn't lose. I won. That means I'm divorcing you. I suggest you stay with your parents." Carrying the suitcase downstairs, I opened the front door and placed it outside. Then, I grabbed my phone and called her mother. "Hello, Quentin. What a surprise. What can I do for you?" Daphne's cheerful voice greeted me. "Daphne, could you come pick up your daughter? I'm divorcing her," I replied bluntly, and hung up before she could respond. To ensure she understood the situation, I sent her the audio recording of Harvey bragging about his weekend plans with her daughter and how she had agreed to it. Switching off my phone, I took Ingrid by the arm, guided her outside, and shut the door behind her. Locking it, I ignored the knocking that followed. Eventually, it stopped. I had anticipated a visit from the authorities, but it never came. Perhaps Harvey was too embarrassed to admit he'd been defeated. Either way, it no longer mattered. I spent Saturday sorting through Ingrid's belongings and calculating finances. When my grandparents passed away, the house had been left to my sister and me. I had taken out a small mortgage to buy out her half, so I knew I would reimburse Ingrid for her contributions toward the mortgage. As I worked, I edited the video and audio recordings, forwarding them to every email address I could find at Ingrid's workplace. People like Harvey often make enemies, and I was confident someone would ensure the evidence reached the right hands. On Sunday morning, Ingrid's father arrived to collect her remaining belongings. He hesitated before asking, "Is there any way you could—" The expression on my face must have answered his unfinished question. He sighed, extended his hand, and we shook. I suspect her parents played a significant role in ensuring the divorce proceedings were smooth. It has been just over 4 months since I filed. On a quiet Saturday afternoon, I was in the garage cleaning my air guns in preparation for a shooting competition the next day. The doorbell rang, breaking the peaceful silence. Before I could answer, Ruby, the woman who kept the house running smoothly, called out, "It's okay, I'll get it." A moment later, she appeared at the garage door. "There's a lady at the door who says she's your wife. Blonde hair, about 170 centimeters tall, maybe 30 or a little older. I've put the kettle on and left her in the living room." Curious and slightly irritated, I made my way to the living room. There she was, Ingrid. She had clearly made an effort to look her best, but something was off. She seemed older, at least 5 years older than when I last saw her, and she didn't look well. This was the first time I'd seen her since the day I asked her to leave. "What do you want?" I asked bluntly. "I've already paid you the agreed amount for the house." Ingrid's face faltered and she took a deep breath before speaking. "Quentin, I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. He convinced me. He promised me it would all work out. He said if you truly loved me, you'd let me go through with it. He made it sound so convincing." She hesitated as if weighing her words carefully. "He even had another woman tell me how it worked for her. Is that woman still married?" I asked, already knowing the answer. She faltered. "I don't know. I don't work there anymore. After everyone saw the video and heard the recordings, I was so ashamed. No one wanted to talk to me. I had no choice but to leave. I have to ask, I said evenly. Are you still in contact with Harvey? No, she said quickly. I never wanted to. He kept his side of the deal and never spoke to me again. But he didn't last long at work. He disappeared for a few days, and by then, everything fell apart. They fired him. Rumor has it, another husband confronted him. Wasn't me, I said dryly. I know, she replied softly. You warned him when you dragged him to the gate, and he stayed away. The police never came to your door, but I can't imagine you weren't on edge for a while. Serves him right, I muttered. A decent man doesn't go after someone else's wife. Her eyes filled with tears. Please, Quentin, can we try again? I'll never make such a terrible mistake again. I swear, I'll prove how much I love you. I thought I was doing something for your benefit, but I see now how wrong I was. I'll regret it forever. At that moment, Ruby entered the room carrying a tray with a teapot, cups, and biscuits. She set it down on the table with a matter-of-fact air. You might want to let it steep for a while, she said before leaving the room. Ingrid's gaze lingered on Ruby as she left, then turned back to me. Or, have you already found someone else? That's Ruby, I replied flatly. She comes in once a week to help with cleaning. She also works at the hangar. I've been too busy with work to keep up with everything myself. And just so you know, I had to take out an extra mortgage to pay you. Ingrid's voice softened as she looked down. Is there any chance? Please, Quentin. I poured myself a cup of tea and took a sip. It was weak. Ruby was right. It needed more time. It's been almost 4 months and I didn't hear a word from you. You didn't contest the divorce. Why now? She hesitated, staring at her knees in embarrassment. I know I made a terrible mistake. I thought giving you time would help, and I needed to gather the courage to face you. My mom said if you still loved me, you might give me another chance. My dad, he thinks I'm wasting my time, but I had to try. I took another sip of tea, keeping my emotions in check. Ruby reappeared, holding a tray of cleaning supplies. She headed toward the stairs, cheerfully announcing, I'm just going to tidy up upstairs. Then, with a smirk, she added, Hope there's nothing in your bedroom I shouldn't see. Put away all the interesting stuff, I hope. She chuckled as she disappeared upstairs. That's just her sense of humor, I explained to Ingrid, my tone flat. You know we were never into anything like that. Maybe we should have been, but you never wanted to try anything out of the ordinary. Except, apparently, with him. Ingrid's cheeks reddened, but I didn't give her a chance to speak. My anger simmered, though I kept it tightly controlled. What do you think? I asked firmly. You blindsided me, telling me you were going to spend the weekend with another man. You planned it for weeks and gave me 2 minutes to react. You even let him threaten me. You got excited about the idea of 2 men fighting over you, hoping your lover would win, so you could have your fun weekend and come back as if nothing had happened. Ingrid's eyes glistened with tears as she stammered, Yes, I was excited when you were about to fight for me, but then I saw you pull out a knife and your air gun. That's when I realized I'd made a mistake. I knew Harvey would never win. I shook my head, my voice calm but firm. I never wanted to fight for you, Ingrid. I wanted to protect what we had, but you destroyed that when you told me you were spending the weekend with him. I loved you with everything I had, but you made your choice. For weeks, you were distant and cold. I thought it was something I could fix, and I tried, flowers, a special dinner, but all along, you were planning this, and instead of talking to me, you threatened me. How could you do that to someone you claim to love? I can't trust you again, Ingrid, and honestly, it's painful just being in the same room with you. I told her it was time for her to leave. Ingrid stood up slowly, her steps hesitant as she made her way to the door. I opened it for her, and she paused, turning to look at me with tear-filled eyes. I love you, she said softly. I'm truly sorry, but I understand. As she stepped outside, I couldn't resist throwing one last remark her way. Do you remember the woman who spoke about Harvey? Yes, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Felicity Dalton. Well, I said, my tone even. She's about to become Felicity Foster again. Her husband's making her take back her maiden name. Ingrid turned away, her tears spilling freely, and I didn't watch her leave. I couldn't bring myself to. I closed the door and headed upstairs, my thoughts briefly shifting to Ruby. Curious, I walked to the bedroom and found the door slightly ajar. Stepping inside, I unbuttoned my shirt and tossed it onto the chair in the corner. Ruby would probably tease me about that later, but I didn't mind. As I turned to the bed, I saw her there, lying comfortably, waiting for me with a gentle smile. Life has been quieter since Ingrid left, and I've come to appreciate that more than I ever expected. The house, once filled with tension and uncertainty, now feels like a sanctuary of peace, a feeling I thought I'd never find again. Ruby and I have built something steady, something real. We didn't rush into anything or force ourselves to follow some ideal of what a relationship should look like, and that's precisely why it works. She moved in a few months ago, and everything about it feels natural. Our days flow effortlessly, mornings spent sharing coffee and quiet conversation, evenings on the porch watching the sky paint itself in shades of orange and pink. There's no drama, no games, just the simplicity of two people sharing their lives. For so long, I thought I needed something grand or extraordinary to feel complete. But with Ruby, I've realized that fulfillment is found in the little things, the quiet moments that make up everyday life. She doesn't demand anything from me. She doesn't try to change me or mold me into someone I'm not. She simply accepts me, flaws and all, and that's more than enough. We don't talk about the past or dwell on what could have been. The mess I left behind with Ingrid stays where it belongs, in the past. With Ruby, it's all about moving forward, one step at a time. She's pursuing projects she had put off for years, and I couldn't be prouder of her. She's been my rock, supporting me through everything, even the hard times. Now it's my turn to do the same for her. We help each other, laugh at life's small absurdities, and make our home a place of warmth and comfort. I don't know what the future holds, and for the first time, I'm okay with that. What I do know is that I'm at peace, a peace I haven't felt in years. Ruby and I don't label what we have, and there's no pressure to be anything other than who we are. When I look at her, when I think about the life we've started to build, I know this is exactly where I'm meant to be. She's my partner in every sense of the word, and I wouldn't change a single thing. Happiness isn't in the grand gestures or dramatic moments. It's in the quiet, steady rhythm of life shared with someone who truly understands you. And with Ruby, that's exactly what I've found. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and hit that subscribe button for more of Love, Lust, Lies.